I'm with Yashwant Deshmukh, founder of See Voter, which has conducted one of the exit polls in this Bihar poll, psephologist, founder of See Voter, and Shankar Animesh, my fellow colleague at ThePrint. And we will also be soon joined by Sanjay Jha, former spokesperson of the Congress Party. Yashwant, welcome to ThePrint, and Shankar, good to see you. You've been on air all morning at ThePrint. Yashwant, your first comments on the Bihar.
Hi, Jyoti, can you see me?
Oh, welcome, Sanjay. I'm glad that you joined. We've just started our program.
Yeah. Okay, I'm set.
What lovely color, Sanjay. What lovely color. I need that kurta.
We are live. Gentlemen, we are live on the YouTube channel. We are live.
Okay.
Sanjay Jha, thank you for your very feisty entrance at this live session. We have, like I said, we've already got Yashwant Deshmukh, founder of See Voter, Shankar Animesh, my colleague, and Sanjay Jha. Welcome to all of you, gentlemen. My first questions to all of you. Yashwant, if you could go first. You had one of the surveys, one of the exit polls in the Bihar poll, which gave a very close to both coalitions, both to the NDA as well as to the Mahagathbandhan led by the RJD. But right now, at 3 o'clock, it seems as if the NDA is ahead. Your first comments.
No, it is a touch and go election. You know, Jyoti, when it is touch and go, when it is too close to call, what I have learned in 25 years of my polling business, it is more often hesitation not to say it that puts the pollsters in the trouble. This is something which I have learned, burnt my finger and started saying it. If you find it too close to call, say it. It's too close to call. And how close this can be? Can you imagine? It's 1 point gap of vote share, as we predicted. And since morning, you have seen we said that there are 77 marginal seats, you know. And as we are speaking, even right now, I can see there are about 36 seats where margin is less than 1,000 votes, you know. Yeah, I mean, where just 1,000 votes going from one direction to other, and those 36 seats will be changing the trends. And 1,000 vote is just one polling machine. You know, one booth, one round is one machine, and that's where this is why I still say it is too close to call. We have to wait for all the final results to come out eventually. Okay. Most of the things that we mentioned were bang on. I mean, in that way, for particularly in the vote share and the observations that yes, RJD did dent the youth across the caste line. Yeah, that is done. Right. What has saved Nitish Kumar and NDA from the complete disaster is the women of Bihar. That's you know, their turnout that has saved them, no doubt. Among the women of Bihar, there were doubts that were cast on the failure of the prohibition policy and all that. But it seems that women have seen the intent of it rather than the execution of the prohibition. The intent is what matters, and I guess including the central scheme, the intent of Prime Minister towards having a more pro-female policies or plans or whatever you can say it, that has saved NDA from a complete disaster that was in the hand of their Hanumanji, as I mentioned. The Hanumanji who was moving around ki Modi hamare dil mein hai aur main seena faad ke dikhaunga.
You're talking about Chirag Paswan.
Yeah, and और जो उन्होंने किया वो दरअसल तो उन्होंने लंका के बजाय अयोध्या में आग लगाई एक तरह से बोलें तो, because I can count at least 30 seats which JDU is losing purely because Chirag Paswan, no less than 30 seats, maybe more by the time we will get the final results, you know. So whether Hanumanji was going there on his own or whether he was sent by Ramji and Lakshmanji, how intelligent that was, I don't know. But if there were times of crisis or times of doubt in these elections, that was courtesy Chirag Paswan and his vote katwa politics. Whatever the long and short goals, politically speaking, Sanjay can understand that better, you know, in that way. But I am glad that the broad trend lines were very clear in our tracker. We said that people are upset with Chief Minister, not with the BJP. That is pretty evident. We said that Rozgar has become the biggest issue, reverse migration has bigger issue, and that is what the opposition had taken And whatsoever the opposition is in fight is only because of that issue.
But, Yashwant,
youth are moving towards them.
Yashwant, you're saying several things, but one of the things you said is that the people are upset with Nitish Kumar. But Sanjay Jha, if I can ask you, the question about the Congress, I will ask you a little bit later. But actually, as of now, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when about 25% of the votes have been counted, it seems as if it's not as if the JDU is not doing it. Of course, it's doing worse than the BJP, but it's still not doing so badly. It's got about 52 seats while the BJP has 76 seats. What do you think?
Well, Jyoti, I think firstly, Yashwant needs to be congratulated because I have been with him on the Times now for the last couple of weeks on his C voter polling. And, he's been conservative. And today, if you look at the results so far, Yashwant, I think he should blush red, beetroot red.
You're the one wearing the red kurta, Sanjay. You've spoken his kurta, I think.
Well, I'm only reflecting his flushed countenance. But the fact of the matter is that he's nailed it on the head. Now, think about it. The gap between the Mahagathbandhan and the NDA today, as of now, is around 24 odd seats. Now, since elections is a zero-sum game, Jyoti, it means that only 12 seats need to flip from one to the other for it to become a neck-to-neck contest. Because the loss of Mahagathbandhan, the loss of the NDA will be a gain for the Mahagathbandhan. So we do see a close head-to-head. I think one needs to wait a little longer because there are far too many seats with a very small fraction. And my supposition has been that, as Yashwant rightly said, if the Paswan factor comes into play, which I believe is a BJP manufactured strategy to weaken Nitish Kumar. At one point, Jyoti, I don't know whether, you would agree with me, but a few months ago, the Bihar elections was considered done and dusted. It was considered to be a formality, and that the NDA was like a foregone possibility going to win it hands down. It's changed in the last couple of weeks.
No, but the question, Sanjay, is your former party. I mean, we can talk about young Chirag Paswan, of course, but your former party, the Congress, I mean, that's done so badly. That is the one that has pulled the Mahagathbandhan down. How do you defend that?
Well, Jyoti, I have 2 points on that. But firstly, let me finish the previous argument.
And this question, by the way, I just wanted to say is being asked by Asha. So people are joining in, asking questions, and I'm going to relay their questions to you.
No, why not? Absolutely, I'll answer that. But before I answer that, if there are a number of seats which have got marginal leads, and if Paswan is denting the JDU, I expect a lot of them to move to the Mahagathbandhan as the counting comes to an end close. So let's see how that plays out. But the second part is a valid question. I have always felt that if the Congress party fights an election as an alliance partner, you should only fight in those seats where you've got a high probability of winning. You should never just gather seats from the point of view of an ego. Now, I know internally that barring around 35 seats, maybe even 40, the Congress is actually not even a serious contender in 30. It did not even have enough candidates for the 30. Yep. So ideally, you should then not even negotiate that. The problem with national parties is a very fragile ego, Jyoti. How can the great Indian National Congress that actually was in Bihar as chief ministers for as late as the 1980s, how do I now become, perception, media, Rahul Gandhi, blah, blah. But I think in politics, you need to be pragmatic. You need to be very clear. Jo jita wahi Sikandar, ultimately the day would arrive of the counting and you would look like a very sorry figure if you contested 70 and you win only 19, when in the previous election you contested 41 and 127. Did we deny RJD an opportunity to maybe contest those seats?
Absolutely.
Maybe the RJD could have done much better. And this is the point. We didn't even have candidates. So I agree with you, Jyoti, that the Congress has a lot to explain for. My party's continued underperformance has to be a disappointment at this stage. And one other point that I was just sharing, I think on Times now, that, everyone says that Mr. Modi comes to a state and his speeches and rhetoric just brings the wave in favor of the BJP, even if it is against the BJP in the state. Why doesn't the Congress have a similar statured national figure who can do the same for the Congress in states? Where you go and you boost and galvanize your workers so that even if there are headwinds against you, they shift in your favor. So there is a comment on the Congress leadership that we cannot ignore. And as a party, I do hope we end up with at least a respectable number of what we got the last time. Because if the Congress reaches 30, the Mahagathbandhan will claw its way back. I do think RJD will end up at least where it was the last time.
Okay, let's wait for that. But Shankar Animesh, my colleague who has been traveling in Bihar for several days, and Yashwant, you know Shankar well. You were both on a panel earlier a week or so ago. Shankar, आप बताइए कि जो आज जो सुबह से हम जो आंकड़े देख रहे हैं, क्या जब आपने जब रिपोर्टिंग करी थी कि आपको लगा था कि इस तरीके का सच अ क्लोज कॉन्टेस्ट दैट वी आर सीइंग, और जो हमने इकोनॉमिक डिस्ट्रेस की हम इतनी बात कर रहे थे, इसके बावजूद इकोनॉमिक डिस्ट्रेस के बावजूद लॉकडाउन हुआ, इतने महीनों से जो माइग्रेंट्स दिल्ली और सारे बड़े शहरों से वापस बिहार गए, उनके ऊपर क्या इम्पैक्ट लगता है? अभी जो आंकड़े आ रहे हैं उसमें तो नहीं दिखाई दे रहा कि कोई ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट हुआ है।
बिल्कुल ज्योति, जो फिलहाल जो आंकड़े दिख रहे हैं उससे ये साफ दिख रहा है कि जो एंटी इनकम्बेंसी नीतीश कुमार की जो हम कह रहे थे कि बहुत ज्यादा है, वो उस मुकाबले में तो उस लार्ज पैमाने पे एंटी इनकम्बेंसी नहीं दिख रही है। अगर नीतीश कुमार इस ह्यूज एंटी इनकम्बेंसी माइग्रेंट क्राइसिस के बाद भी अगर 50 सीटें ला रहे हैं, तो 25 सीट तो एलजेपी वाला भी ऐड कर लीजिए ना, जो एलजेपी ने डैमेज किया है नीतीश कुमार का, या फिर कहें कि बीजेपी की टैक्टिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग के कारण डैमेज हुआ है। तो यानी कि 75 सीटों का आंकड़ा अगर जेडीयू का मान लें तो नीतीश कुमार बहुत अच्छा कर रहे हैं इस इलेक्शन में भी, इस तमाम फैक्ट के बाद भी।
लेकिन यशवंत तो नहीं कह रहे हैं कि यशवंत तो कह रहे हैं कि नीतीश कुमार अच्छा नहीं कर रहे हैं।
नहीं, अच्छा बिल्कुल नहीं कर रहे हैं मेरे हिसाब से, क्योंकि अगर आप वोट शेयर देखें इलेक्शन कमीशन की वेबसाइट पे, नीतीश कुमार ज्यादा सीटों पे लड़के 15% वोट के ऊपर हैं, बीजेपी कम सीटों पे लड़कर के 20% पे है। 15% और 20% में 5% का एक बड़ा गैप है। और ये गैप कहने के लिए हम कह सकते हैं कि जो एलजेपी ने वोट किया है, एलजेपी ने वोट काटे होंगे। एलजेपी इस समय वैसे तो बोले करीबन 6% स्टेट लेवल पे इस समय जो आंकड़ा है, लेकिन ये 6% हम जानते हैं कि केवल आधी सीटें लड़ी उन्होंने। तो नीतीश कुमार की सीटों पे ये आंकड़ा 10 से 15% का है, दरअसल 6% का नहीं है। ये डबल होगा उस सीट जिसपे वो कंटेस्ट कर रहे हैं। मेरा केवल ये कहना है कि अगर एलजेपी नहीं लड़ती तो जो क्या हम सोचते हैं कि बीजेपी के नाराज वोटर वोट दे देते नीतीश कुमार को, यह नहीं होने वाला था। मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि बीजेपी के वोटर उन सीटों पे बड़ी तादाद में शायद घर बैठ जाते और टर्नआउट गिर गया होता। एलजेपी को बीजेपी ने अपने जो सो कॉल्ड रेबल कैंडिडेट्स उपलब्ध कराए, उसके कारण उन सीटों पे बीजेपी एक मैसेज देने में कामयाब हुई कि भाई ठीक है, इसकी तरफ ड्रिफ्ट हो जाओ। वो एक स्ट्रेटेजी हो सकती है। कुछ लोग ये भी कह सकते हैं बहुत सयानेपन में ज्योति, दैट यू नो दिस वाज अ मास्टर स्ट्रोक टू डाइवर्ट द एंटी इनकम्बेंसी वोट अवे फ्रॉम आरजेडी। दैट्स अ बिग बीएस, बिकॉज people who know Bihar, they know for sure बीजेपी का नाराज वोटर आरजेडी को नहीं जाता, वो घर बैठता है। आरजेडी का नाराज वोटर बीजेपी को नहीं जाता, वो घर बैठता है। एंड द टर्नआउट would have been dropped if this would not have happened. But having said that, the turnout did not drop, particularly in the seats where you will see a direct correlation, Jyoti. The seats where women turnout went up has saved the day for Nitish Kumar. Otherwise, he was heading for a solid, embarrassing, result today. It is courtesy the female voters who has saved the day for Nitish Kumar, and they came out in larger number. In fact, entire Mithila and the North Bihar, all those areas, there is basically, if you look at the map of Bihar, Jyoti, you will be surprised. Bihar today, forget results, has a clear-cut demarcation of North and South Bihar purely in terms of female turnout.
So Yashwant, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Sanjay, before going, can you give us, I just want to know, in Simanchal, it seems to me that a large number of votes that should have gone to the Mahagathbandhan in terms of the Muslim Yadav alliance, that so far at least seems to go, or seems to have gone or are going in favor of Prime Minister Modi or the BJP. Or the NDA. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that despite everything, the PM looms large across the Hindi heartland and, I mean, indeed across India?
Well, Jyoti, I do believe that, one of the formations that is making an impact, and that is an impact in damaging the Mahagathbandhan, is this grand secular democratic front. And here, I think Mr. Owaisi's party is causing probably the losses to both the RJD and the Congress. Technically, we have always seen that the Muslim voter votes tactically. They vote for candidates who win the election.
Right.
And OIC's attempt in the past to try and somewhere down the line thwart the Congress or any other secular party has not really worked. But maybe it's at the moment kind of boomeranging big time on the Congress and the RJD, because maybe Mr. OIC is picking up the votes. Maybe Mayawati, very much of marginal fringe factor in Bihar. But remember, in a closely contested election, these are seats that could be flipping over. So it's very surprising to find the BJP leading in Kishanganj, for example. So I do believe somewhere down the line, this Bihar election has been a complex one, not easy for Yashwant to actually make any prognostication on. But I do believe that this factor will be critical, because Simanchal was one area where the Mahagathbandhan was banking and actually doing very well.
Right. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you for your time. We'll be able to come back to you.
Thank you.
Shankar, if you can explain what's happening in terms of, आप अभी बता रहे थे कि जो reality on the ground और जिस तरीके से जो आंकड़े हम दिखाई दे रहे हैं, your take.
ज्योति, देखिए कई सारे फैक्टर हुए हैं जो इस समय संजय कह रहे थे कि सीमांचल का इलाका है जहां पे AIM काफी बड़ा वोट इस समय आरजेडी का काट रहा है। वहां पे उस इलाके में आप देखिए कि 15-16 पार्टियों का जो अलग अलग पोजीशन है, उपेंद्र कुशवाहा और ऐसी ढेर सारी पार्टियां हैं जो 18% का वोट काट रही है। अगर ये 18% वोट नहीं कटता और महागठबंधन के साथ में जाता तो स्थिति बिल्कुल डिफरेंट होती। तो इसलिए बहुत सारे परमुटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन बिहार इलेक्शन में काम कर रहे हैं। ये अलग बात है कि हो सकता है कि बीजेपी का एक क्लेवर स्ट्रैटेजी हो सकती है कि उपेंद्र कुशवाहा और इन सबको कहा हो कि आप अलग अलग चुनाव लड़ो, जिससे कि एंटी एस्टैब्लिशमेंट और एंटी इनकम्बेंसी वाला वोट है वो डिवाइड हो जाए। तो ये सारी ट्रिक्स हो सकते हैं इस इलेक्शन में, लेकिन कुल मिला के 18% वोट अगर महागठबंधन को मिलता तो तेजस्वी यादव एक बड़े फिगर पे होते। और ये भी बात सही है कि इतनी एंटी इनकम्बेंसी के बाद भी तेजस्वी यादव अगर 70 सीटों पर 68 सीटों पर फाइट कर रहे हैं, पिछले चुनाव में 2015 में 80 सीटें आरजेडी ने जीती थी, लेकिन इस इलेक्शन में एंटी इनकम्बेंसी के बाद भी वो बड़ी सीट नहीं जीत पा रहे हैं। तो ये भी हमें ध्यान रखना होगा।
Yashwant, एक सवाल, we have got a question from Ishank Sagar who's asking that one question that Congress needs to ask is that today every BJP voter who 30 years ago was perhaps a Congress voter, especially the upper caste voters, have they switched to the BJP, and if so, why?
Well, that started way back, Jyoti. I mean, as a political editor, political journalist, you know that experiment started with in Uttar Pradesh. Congress had three major rock solid 1/3 combination: upper caste, Muslims, and Dalits. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And in UP, post Mandal Kamandal era, BJP took away the upper caste, Mulayam Singh took away the Muslims, and Bahanjili took away the Dalits. So what Congress was left was a big zero. So I guess that Congress is facing some serious crisis to, just like Sanjay said, that they need to understand that there is a sentiment of local leadership where they are absent right now. There is a sentiment for the central leadership where they are still present. So just like the BJP, even after having Modi, between the Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha election in every state, BJP tends to lose about 10% votes, even after Modi campaigning for them. The same applies on Congress. Congress needs to realize that, accept that they are not the regional force anymore. Imagine if Congress would have left 35 seats more for Tejaswi. He would have flipped at least 10 seats out of those 35. And 10 more seats flipping, you would have seen the way the tally would have got struck.
But maybe the RJD was also not ready, Yashwant. After all, during the lockdown, Tejaswi was in Delhi for a large chunk of that time. And he also returned to Bihar only very
No, I agree. I mean, this we discussed. This I told that, the momentum, what Tejaswi could not take advantage of was that probably he was too disheartened after last year's Lok Sabha poll results, number one. Number two, he did not commit and invest himself in the field. Just like in 2011, Akhilesh ने एक साल यूपी में साइकिल चलाई जो थी. 2018, एक साल जगन मोहन रेड्डी पैदल चला पूरे आंध्रा में. 3 years, we have seen Hemant Soren reaching each and every village in Jharkhand. he had to invest and commit regardless of the election result. जगन मोहन रेड्डी ने तो हार नहीं मानी, अखिलेश ने तो हार नहीं मानी, हेमंत सोरेन ने तो हार नहीं मानी. आज let's concede this thing. Even after all said and done, we know for sure in UP in the coming assembly election, Akhilesh will be a pole to deal with. You know, I think he probably was too disheartened with the Lok Sabha election results. He did not go into the field. It was only after, you know, the trackers and the polls and the media started saying, oh my God, the Rojgar Mudda is back and this thing. Then only he actually came out of the shell and started playing. And then only he surprised himself, oh my God, itne sare log bheed mein aa rahe hain, rally mein. So, you know, but by that time it was too late. He should have invested a bit more into the field. But having said that, कांग्रेस के साथ में ये प्रॉब्लम है कि कांग्रेस को समझना पड़ेगा कि रीजनल लेवल पे वो जूनियर पार्टनर है, नेशनल लेवल पे वो सीनियर पार्टनर बने उसको फायदा होगा, रीजनल लेवल पे जबरदस्ती. आई रिमेंबर सर्टेन हेमंत सोरेन सेइंग कि हमने बहुत सारी सीट छोड़ दी कांग्रेस के लिए क्योंकि कांग्रेस का पेट हाथी का पेट है. दैट्स द लाइन ही यूज्ड, हेमंत सोरेन बिफोर द झारखंड. कांग्रेस का पेट हाथी का पेट है. So Congress has to realize it's no more a hathi ka pet. Otherwise, it will keep on damaging the alliance partners.
Right. शंकर जी ये बताइए, 2-3 बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सवाल आ रहे हैं. एक मोहित परामर्श सिंह पूछ रहे हैं कि why is महागठबंधन leading in भोजपुर and Magad area? और आदित्य बुरली ये पूछ रहे हैं कि do you think people are seeing reflection of लालू's जंगल राज और इसीलिए तेजस्वी को इतना वोट नहीं पड़ा?
देखिए ज्योति, इसमें मुझे लगता है कि देशमुख साहब ज्यादा बेहतर बताएंगे, लेकिन जो तेजस्वी का जो पोल प्रॉमिस था 10 लाख युवाओं को सरकारी नौकरी देने का, ये एक बड़ा पोल प्रॉमिस था और युवाओं में तो निश्चित रूप से इसका एक अच्छा खासा बज़ था. लेकिन उस मोमेंटम को तेजस्वी आगे कैरी फॉरवर्ड नहीं कर पाए जो मोमेंटम उन्हें फर्स्ट फेज में मिला था, क्योंकि सेकेंड फेज में जब बीजेपी के कई सारे नेताओं से मैं पटना में मिला, जिसमें राजू तारूरी, रविशंकर प्रसाद,
लेकिन क्यों नहीं इस मोमेंटम को क्यों नहीं ये आगे ले गए?
इसके पीछे देखिए बहुत सारे फैक्टर हो सकते हैं. हालांकि जो बीजेपी लीडर्स थे उनका ये कहना था कि अगर लोकसभा पोल के रिजल्ट को भी देखें, 2019 के रिजल्ट को देखें, तो सेकेंड फेज और थर्ड फेज का जहां पे लोकसभा इलेक्शन था वहां पे बीजेपी का मार्जिन जो विनिंग कैंडिडेट का था वो 2 लाख 2.5 लाख का था. तो यानी कि बीजेपी और जेडीयू का फेज सेकेंड और थर्ड फेज ही था जहां पे उनकी विनिबिलिटी और प्रोबेबिलिटी ज्यादा थी. फर्स्ट फेज का जो इलेक्शन था उसमें 1,80,000 का विनिंग मार्जिन था लोकसभा इलेक्शन में. तो बीजेपी और जेडीयू फर्स्ट फेज में बहुत ज्यादा उम्मीद नहीं कर रही थी कि बहुत अच्छा करेंगे, और जैसा कि आज जो रिजल्ट दिख रहे हैं उसमें भी ये दिख रहा है. दूसरा जो बड़ा फैक्टर है आज के इलेक्शन में, जो स्टोरी है वो सीपीआई, माले और इन सब की जो स्टोरी है वो सबसे ज्यादा सरप्राइजिंग है. जो वोट ट्रांसफर कांग्रेस नहीं करा पाई, लेफ्ट पार्टियों का कैसे वोट ट्रांसफर हुआ.
तो ये सवाल मैं आप दोनों से पूछूंगी. ईशान श्रीवास्तव का ये सवाल है कि लेफ्ट पार्टी जो है या माले वाली जो पार्टीज हैं ये 17 सीटों में अभी आगे हैं, तो ये जो वोट इनका जो है ये कहां से आया?
ये एक्सपेक्टेड था ज्योति. इनका अपना कैडर वोट इन सीटों पे हमेशा से रहा है. और देखिए लेफ्ट की समझदारी, अकलमंदी जो लेफ्ट की है वो कांग्रेस के पास में नहीं है. लेफ्ट को पता है कि पूरे बिहार में उनका केवल 25-26 सीट का पॉकेट है, उसके बाहर लेफ्ट एब्सेंट है, कुछ नहीं है उसके पास में. उसने बहुत समझदारी से केवल वो 25-26 सीटें ही मांगी. भैया हमको इतना ही दो, हम इतना ही लड़ेंगे. और वहां पर एमवाई जितना वोट था आरजेडी का वो पूरा का पूरा शिफ्ट हो गया उनको, और इट वाज अ विनिंग कॉम्बिनेशन. अगर कांग्रेस भी समझदारी से 30-35 सीटों को लड़ने का ख्याल बनती तो मेरा पक्का मानना है 15 से 20 सीट का टोटल ओवरऑल इंपैक्ट पड़ गया होता टेरिस में. ये मैं कह सकता हूं. लेकिन लेफ्ट की सफलता ना आश्चर्यचकित करने वाली है, ना ऐसी है जिसमें लगे कि ये कहां से आ गया. ऐसा नहीं है. वो उनका कोर हिस्सा हमेशा से 70 सालों से रहा है उन सीटों पे. माले का खास तौर पे, सीपीआई सीपीएम का भी उतना नहीं है, सीपीआई माले का बहुत तगड़ा हिस्सा उन सारे नक्सल प्रभावित इलाकों में बहुत जबरदस्त है.
शंकर जी, मैं आपको पीएम की छवि जो है उसके बारे में पूछना चाहूंगी. हैज द पीएम रिमेन्ड ओवर एंड अबव एवरी अदर लीडर इन दिस बिहार पोल?
निश्चित रूप से ज्योति, और मुझे तो लगता है कि बिहार का जो इलेक्शन है उसको मैं थोड़ा एक्सेप्शन मानूंगा कि इकलौता एक ऐसा असेंबली सेगमेंट है या इकलौता ऐसा स्टेट है जहां की पीएम की इमेज ने उस इलेक्शन को ड्राइव किया है। झारखंड में प्रधानमंत्री उस इलेक्शन को ड्राइव नहीं कर सके थे, रघुवर दास की इतनी ज्यादा एंटी इनकम्बेंसी थी और प्रधानमंत्री अमित शाह की रैलियों के बावजूद भी वहां बीजेपी हार गई थी। दूसरे कई सारे स्टेट में देखें, इकलौता ऐसे स्टेट है जहां पे माइग्रेंट क्राइसिस का सबसे ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट था, जहां पे एम्प्लॉयमेंट सबसे बड़ा इशू था, लेकिन प्रधानमंत्री ने उस इलेक्शन को ड्राइव किया और आज कुल मिला के कह सकते हैं कि बीजेपी एक बड़े अच्छे नंबर पे है। पिछले इलेक्शन के मुकाबले 25 सीटों से ज्यादा सीट पे बीजेपी इस समय वहां पे जीत रही है।
Yashwant, last question to you also about PM Modi and BJP, and Supreet Sharma is asking this question. Can we consider this a mandate in favor of Modi's handling of the COVID crisis, given the struggle of the migrant workers, and perhaps also the schemes that the center has laid out to deal with the COVID crisis?
My answer would be a big no. You know, if COVID would have been handled properly, if reverse migration would have handled more systematically and also with more empathy, then the NDA seat should not have been less than 170 or 180. I guess that whatever the drop is there is courtesy not just Ramvilas Paswan, but the माहौल जो बना ज्योति ना कि गड़बड़ हो रही है, वो माहौल केवल और केवल कोविड की क्राइसिस को और खास तौर पे घर लौट रहे मजदूरों को उतनी सहानुभूति पूर्वक मदद न करने की है। लोग नाराज थे, हम सबने देखा, लाखों की तादाद में लोग पैदल जा रहे थे। कोई अदरवाइज बिहार के अरिथमेटिक में कोई कारण नहीं है ज्योति कि आप डाउट करें कि एनडीए को जीतना चाहिए या नहीं जीतना चाहिए, कोई डाउट नहीं है। For 49 out of 40 Lok Sabha seat, they roamed home last year. The sheer brutal arithmetic of this vote bank combination, which is like 45% to 30%, ideally, is right now at 38-37. So that 7-8% reverse swing, you know, is only because of reverse migration.
But
this reverse swing is
NDA
because of reverse migration.
But NDA is still winning, and that's at the end of the day.
It is still winning for two reasons. Number one, when we say 20% of Bihar has no recollection of Jungle Raj, that also means 80% of Bihar still has recollection of Jungle Raj. Number one, it was that vote. Second thing, come what may, Jyoti, there have been central scheme after schemes which has affected quality of life for the female voters, particularly in the Bimaru states. And females have been taken a very solid stand behind Prime Minister Modi. And here, in this particular case, I would say the much used phrase of double engine is useful. I would use that phrase because
perhaps it's about trust, Yashwant. Perhaps it's about trust.
It's about trust.
You're trusting the leader to deliver. कि आज नहीं, कल नहीं, लेकिन in this period of adversity, और कौन हमारे साथ खड़ा होगा?
Absolutely, it was about
PM
trust.
is doing that.
It was absolutely about trust and as the intent, as I said, कि औरतें नाराज इम्प्लीमेंटेशन, अगर दारूबंदी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ठीक नहीं हुई तो उस पे नाराज थी, लेकिन उन्होंने नीतीश कुमार के इंटेंट पे शक नहीं किया, क्योंकि प्रोहिबिशन पूरे भारत में जब जहां लगा ज्योति, उसने एक पैरेलल अर्थव्यवस्था खड़ी की या पैरेलल इकोनॉमी करप्शन की खड़ी की। बावजूद उसके the charges of corruptions were only on the local level. Nobody pointed a finger towards Nitish Kumar that he personally got corrupt and benefited out of parallel economy of prohibition. तो इंटेंट के ऊपर महिलाओं का पूरा भरोसा था। मुझे लगता है कि अभी भी इस देश में बहुत सारी पॉलिटिक्स जो चल रही है, जो कई सारे एनालिस्ट को समझ में नहीं आती ज्योति, कि ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है। हम भूल जाते हैं कि लोग इंटेंट पर भी वोट करते हैं, लोग ट्रस्टवर्दीनेस के ऊपर वोट करते हैं, लोग इस बात को देख पाते हैं, समझ पाते हैं कि अच्छा हो सकता है कि उतना डिलीवर नहीं कर पाया हो। फॉर एग्जांपल, yesterday only the demonetization anniversary, आज की तारीख में एनालिस्ट और बहुत सारे पत्रकार हम लोग बोलेंगे, लेकिन आज भी आप फील्ड में जाइए, लोगों से पूछिए कि मोदी ने जानबूझ के डिमोनेटाइजेशन जैसा गलत काम किया, लोग मना कर देंगे। लोग कहेंगे सही से नहीं हुआ, गड़बड़ हो गया ठीक से, लेकिन मोदी जो किया वो ठीक किया था। So basically, it's at the end of the day, democracy is sum total of trustworthiness.
Yeah.
I guess that there is a problem of having the trust, lack of trustworthiness in the brand opposition at this point of time. And wherever the people get that brand of trustworthiness, they vote for it. They voted for Kejriwal in Delhi. They voted for Amrinder. They voted for so many opposition leaders across India.
Yeah.
So that's evident. That's pretty evident, Jyoti.
So for the moment, the Prime Minister's image looming large over Bihar, but we are watching this election as it unfolds. It's not done yet. It's not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. Yashwant Deshmukh, Shankar Animesh, thank you so much for your time. And we will come back to you very soon. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.